Hi there, Striving Photographer here, and today I'm going to show you how to take multiple short exposure images of a waterfall, combine them, and create a smooth long exposure effect. Very easy to do in Photoshop. Here are 5 images I took in Alaska of a waterfall. Let me show you one of them to give you an idea of what the parameters are. This was taken with a Sony a7R II camera with a 16-35 f2.8G master lens. So very good quality equipment, good quality images. This image was taken at 1/10 of a second. This day I had forgotten my neutral density filters, and this was the longest I could prolong my exposure, 1/10 of a second. Even shooting it at f22, which I almost never do because of the deleterious effects of the tiny aperture causing diffraction associated softness. But I had no choice here. So I took multiple short shutter speed images knowing that I could later combine them in Photoshop to create a long exposure effect. I'm going to select all 5 images. The first image is already selected, so I'm going to shift click the last image. 2-finger click or right click and say edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. And here are the layers in Photoshop arranged beautifully. The next step is relatively automated if you have a modern version of Photoshop. When I say a modern version, I'm talking about a version that lets you create smart objects. If you do not have a modern version of Photoshop, I'm going to show you later on how to do this process manually. It's not hard, believe me. Let's take the layers and convert them first into a smart object. The first layer is already selected. I'm going to shift click the last layer. I'm going to go up to Layers, Smart Objects, and choose Convert to Smart Object. Depending on how many layers you have, how many megapixels each layer is, and how fast your computer is, this step may take quite a bit of time, so please be patient. Okay, here we go. A smart object has been created. We know it's a smart object because we've got this tiny thumbnail inside of this larger thumbnail. We are next going to average out the layers within this smart object. We go up to Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and choose Median. And look at that. A beautiful waterfall effect has been created. Let me make this a little larger, fit to screen. Here is the waterfall, the smooth effect. What did it look like before? Like this. And here it is after. The only thing I don't like about this image is what has happened to the sky. Because the clouds are also moving, this averaging effect has created this funny looking sky. This is pretty easy to fix, however. We're going to create a snapshot of this image, and we do that by clicking on this little camera icon within the history palette. I'm going to click that, and a snapshot 1 has been created. I'm going to double click on that and change the name to something more descriptive, maybe Smooth Waterfall. Okay, now let's go back to the step before we flatten the stack. So that says Convert to Smart Object. At this point, the sky looks great. I'm going to take another snapshot of this image. Same process. I'm going to call this, instead of snapshot 1, I'm going to call it Good Sky. Okay. Let's now reconvert the image back into the smooth waterfall. We have to now convert the smart object back into a regular layer. Only in a regular layer can further edits be made. We do this by going to Layer and choosing Flatten Image. Now it has become a regular layer and it says background on it. We are going to paint over the sky with our Good Sky snapshot. So next to the Good Sky, I'm going to click the box, and you notice a little paintbrush with a counterclockwise arrow is put on there. That's the icon for the history brush. We also make sure that the history brush is selected from our tools palette, and all we have to do now is just paint over the sky with our brush. And don't worry about getting onto the mountaintops, because the mountaintops are going to be relatively the same in both images. So it's no worries at all. So I think that looks pretty good. So now we've got this beautiful silky waterfall and a great looking sky in a single image. Let me now go back and show you how you would do this if you do not have a modern version of Photoshop. Let's go back to the step right before we converted it into a smart object, which is here. What you have to do is you have to average out the effect of each layer. And we do that with a mathematical computation. It's very simple. It sounds very convoluted, but it's actually quite simple. We have to change the opacity of each layer. How much do we change it? Depends on how many layers we have. And the formula to change the opacity is 1 over the layer number. Let me show you what I mean. The very bottom layer is the first layer, so it's 1 over 1, which means 100%. The second layer is 1 over 2, which means 50%. The third layer is 1 over 3, which means approximately 33%. The fourth layer is 1 over 4, which means 25%. And then the fifth layer is 1 over 5, which is 20%. And look at that. You get the same effect. You get the nice silky waterfall and the messed up sky. You'd fix the messed up sky the same way you'd create a snapshot of the waterfall image and a snapshot of one of the images with the good sky, and paint the good sky with the history Toolbrush over the image of the silky waterfall. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more educational content on photography and editing, please subscribe to this channel. Thanks again.